What is going on, world? What's up, YouTube? It's Zero here. Today I'm bringing you guys a brand new episode of the 8 Below Show. Welcome everyone to 8 Below. Thanks for being here, guys, to the best entertainment-related show here on YouTube. And I'm super excited about our episode here today. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, so let's get into it. What happened to Tom Clancys Hawks? Do you guys remember the franchise Hawks that got 2 installments in it, that being like a flight simulation game? A lot of fun, and the graphics were at times really beyond its time in my personal opinion. And so I want to talk about what happened to this franchise, so let's talk about it. Tom Clancys Hawks, guys, was, just to kind of refresh everyone's memory, was a arcade flight video game developed by Ubisoft Bucharest and published by Ubisoft for Microsoft Windows 360, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3. And this was a game that goes back, guys, to 2009 when this game was actually released. And upon release, guys, not only did we get a single-player experience, we also got a multiplayer experience, which came in the form of players are able to complete the campaign missions in co-op mode. There is also a deathmatch mode where players can challenge each other. Winning players are rewarded with experience points to unlock more weapons. The planes that are available in multiplayer mode are determined by the current level of the player. So, number 2, guys, this was a game that had a full package to it. I mean, it had a single-player experience, co-op experience, as well as a multiplayer experience. And then to top it all off, with Hawks, at least the first game, it had received mixed to positive reviews. The satellite mapping has been largely praised due to its increased authenticity, although it has also been criticized as pixelation becomes very obvious during low-level flying. And as far as the reception goes, guys, I mean, pretty much across the board, got pretty good reviews. I would say anywhere between, 6 to 8 really is what you were getting out of 10. So that being like Game Informer gave it an 8.75 out of 10. Game Revolution gave it a B. GameSpot gave it a 7.5 out of 10. IGN gave it a 6.8. And Metacritic, 74 out of 100. Pretty much across the board, guys. Kind of got, like I said, in that 70s range. Very, pretty good numbers. It did really good numbers, and it warranted a sequel, guys, that being Tom Clancys Hawks 2, which came out, obviously, a couple of years later. It was released in 2010 on the Xbox 360. So really, I mean, pretty much a year later, actually, guys, when you think about it, pretty much back to back. And so, as I said, the question is where, what happened to this franchise? Well, there was a lot of rumors, guys, that they were going to actually make a Hawks 3 at some point. It was going to come out on the Xbox One as well as the PS4, but a lot of those were just rumors. Question is, though, why is this a game that doesn't exist anymore? I think part of it, guys, comes down to Hawks 2 didn't do quite as well as the first one. The first one was kind of new. A lot of people enjoyed the first game a lot because it was kind of the not the first of its kind, because you had like Ace Combat and you had other games within the genre of flight simulation. But this was one from Tom Clancy, and of course it's got a very strong fan base as far as Tom Clancy's games are concerned, and it's got a multiplayer and a single player story as well as co-op modes. So I think that this is a franchise that should coexist within all of the rest of gaming. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that Tom Clancys Hawks 2, it also got Wii versions, which was really strange to me why they brought this out on the Wii. Even the first Hawks game came out on like iOS and on Android and such. So both of these games, I think part of it was they didn't really put it on the correct places. I mean, sure, they put it on consoles and PC, which is what you want to do. But when you're trying to do too much, sometimes that can backfire, and I think it did for Hawks. Probably more so Hawks 2 than the first one, because the second one wasn't as good. It was a little bit, not quite as good as the first one. And all in all, guys, what it really comes down to is the reception as well as, of course, the sales really at the end of the day. And I think Ubisoft felt maybe they should just move in a direction of other games at this point in time, because this game came out in 2010 and we've been waiting a long time. Now, here's something interesting. If you go onto the Ace Combat Reddit, there was a post that came out from a guy, the Angsty Kid, that says Hawks 3 Airdrift leaked coming to PS4 and Xbox One. According to a recent leak with IGN France, Tom Clancy's Hawks 3 Airdrift will be the third installment in the critically acclaimed franchise, aiming to reinvent the genre for a mainstream audience. Players will utilize the revolutionary airdrift mechanic, allowing their jet to turn and maneuver on a flat axis without worrying about vertical space. Ubisoft spokesperson Marc Dumont explains the significance behind this new mechanic. Both flight sims and racing games are dying. We need a way to unite the two smaller genres into a larger, more commercially viable one. Airdrift finally lets us do exactly that, mechanically turn an aircraft into a car with a single flick of a switch. So, look, at the end of the day, guys, I think that the flight simulation games, that's part of the reason that it's another one of those genres, kind of like the skateboarding franchises or a lot of the different, music genres, like, the Guitar Heroes of the world, Rock Bands of the world, the Ace Combats of the world. There's a lot of games that feel that do deserve to coexist, right, within all of gaming. But there might have just been a time and a place for these genres. And I think back then, when Ace Combat was really at its peak and when, Hawks was something that, they were trying out and it was doing really well, maybe they felt that it wasn't worth continuing just because being a flight simulator, they're popular for a while, but then maybe, a lot of people end up moving on to other games. And so I think there were a few things that contributed to Hawks 3 never being made, at least at this point. Now, this leak is obviously false. It has to be, because Airdrift would have probably already come out at this point. So I would say that either Hawks 3 is in a development hell stage, or it's just on a hiatus, or even like a permanent limbo state at this point. Because PS4 and Xbox One, guys, this post was from 3 years ago, and we haven't seen Hawks 3 since. So now, is it possible it could come out on the next-gen consoles? That's certainly possible, and I'll certainly keep you guys all up to speed as more information comes out, if more information comes out. But I would love to know from all of you, what do you guys think happened to Tom Clancy's Hawks, and even simulation games, or even games like, Skate and Tony Hawk Pro Skater and Guitar Hero, Rock Band, games that have a niche or in a niche genre that were popular at one time? Would those ever make a resurgence? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And for more Tom Clancy's Hawks content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. So we've talked on the YouTube channel a number of times, guys, about BioShock and the future of this franchise. Well, in this segment of the show, I want to take some time to talk about BioShock 4. We've talked on the YouTube channel about BioShock, the past, the present, and what the future could look like for this franchise. And I want to talk about BioShock 4 in particular, and why this game should exist and coexist with other games out there, and just have a continuation of this franchise. So let's talk about it. BioShock 4, guys, I have voiced my concerns of a continuation of this franchise with Ken Levine, the guy who was behind all the BioShock games, essentially, pretty much just one of those guys who was there from the get-go as the creative director. And him not being a part of BioShock 4, which is understandable. I mean, he said that, BioShock Infinite really caused a lot of problems with his personal life, with his family, and just even creating a project of that scale, he didn't want to have to do again. And so they kind of rebranded his production company, and now they're working on smaller, unannounced projects. So I've been critical, not so much critical, but just more concerned about BioShock 4. And it's a real bummer. It's unfortunate that we've lost Ken Levine. Like, he's not going to be the guy for BioShock. However, I do believe that there's somebody out there that is going to take the reins from Ken Levine with BioShock and really steer this ship in the right direction. Even though BioShock Infinite is taking us to, further and further heights with this franchise. Whoever that person is, I believe that person is out there that is working on BioShock 4 right now, and we're going to find out here just how good or how bad this franchise is going to be moving forward. And I have a lot of hopes, a lot of promise for it. But why this franchise should continue is because what Ken Levine and these guys worked on and built is something truly special, and it's spectacular, and it's a really great franchise in my opinion. And I believe that it's a franchise that deserves to continue because of the narrative. It's just such a good narrative, and the multiplayer experiences, the co-op experiences, I think you could really elaborate on all of those things. I compare BioShock in kind of the stage that it's in right now to what happened with one of my favorite games of all time, that being Gears of War. The Gears of War franchise, guys, I've talked about here on the YouTube channel a number of times. And Cliff Bleszinski, or Cliffy B, was the guy who helmed the first, Gears of War games, that being the first 3. And then ultimately, Epic Games, a lot of things, there was a lot of transitions and such, but ultimately Cliff Bleszinski moved on to other projects, kind of started his own production company. And then after Gears Judgment comes out, we get the Gears of War Ultimate Edition, which was the first game by the Coalition, not based around Epic Games whatsoever. And the Coalition was created by Microsoft. And the Coalition, there was a guy named Rod Ferguson who ended up taking the helm and took those reins from Cliffy B, and he continued the Gears of War legacy. And in my opinion, he did a phenomenal job. Took us from the Gears of War Ultimate Edition to Gears 4 and Gears 5, and now Gears Tactics. And it's going to be awesome to see the future, even though Rod Ferguson now has moved on to Activision and Blizzard for Diablo. But what I'm getting at here is there is a Rod Ferguson maybe working on BioShock 4, a guy like that, a guy who can take the reins, and I believe and I trust that that's going to happen in BioShock. So I don't think that we should live in our fears. We really can't live in our fears ever, guys. You can't live in your fear that this is going to be something that is going to ruin the franchise. Maybe it will. Maybe it'll be one of those situations like a Metal Gear Survive that comes out and really tampers or really hurts the franchise as a whole. But maybe BioShock 4 is going to be something special. And what I think that even if you don't put your expectations super high, you kind of expect a good game, but hopefully something that it's going to be a new developer and all of that. Just expect something that it's going to be a work in progress. I compare it to like Halo as well. The Halo franchise, guys, was, worked on by Bungie, and then Bungie moved on. And then, of course, you have 343 Industries. They've done one game up to this point, that being, of course, Halo 5 Guardians. A lot of people didn't like it, but now they're working on Halo Infinite, and we'll see how good that one is. But once you get a couple of games under a developer's belt, they start to become more familiarized. They figure out what they're doing right, wrong, and what they can do different moving forward. And we might have to do the same thing with, the developers working on BioShock 4. But it's a franchise that deserves to exist, guys, within the rest of gaming, because it is a incredible franchise. I mean, it's won tons of awards, guys, been nominated for so many awards, and it is a great narrative. It's a very interesting story. We were you're from underneath the water, to underground cities, to cities in the skies. Who knows where it could go next, where there's now lighthouses that open doors to different worlds and such. It's a great, great world. I can't wait to explore more of it. I would love to see like an open world or at least, more of a semi-open world type of game out of BioShock 4. But it deserves to exist. Point blank, guys. Even though Ken Levine is not helming this game and this franchise anymore, I believe there's a guy who's going to come through, who's going to take those reins and is going to continue the legacy that they started with the first BioShock games. But I'd love to hear from you guys. Do you guys think BioShock 4 should exist? Or do you think they should just leave the games alone because they're perfect as they are? Let me know what you guys think. And for more BioShock 4 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. There are so many movies that are coming out that I'm so excited about and so highly anticipated to see. And it seems like a lot of these movies are starting to kind of bunch up in a way because of the pandemic going on. A lot of movies are getting pushed back, so on and so forth. Well, one of the movies I wanted to talk about that is slated for a 2021 release is Killers of the Flower Moon, based off of the book, directed by Martin Scorsese, his next big tale that he wants to tell. And of course, this is going to be helmed by himself. And then, of course, two of his favorite actors that he loves to work with, that being Leonardo DiCaprio as well as Robert De Niro. And DiCaprio, guys, is my personal favorite actor. I think he's one of the greatest actors of all time. De Niro, just an incredible actor as well. So you got two incredible actors on top of a incredible director, one of the greatest directors of all time. So what could possibly go wrong? Well, what I want to talk about in this last segment of the show is, where is Killers of the Flower Moon, and how could this movie possibly have some issues kind of moving forward? Let's talk about it. So guys, as I said, this is a movie. Just really quick premise: members of the Osage tribe in the United States are murdered under mysterious circumstances in the 1920s, sparking a major FBI investigation involving J. Edgar Hoover, which is very interesting because Leonardo DiCaprio played as J. Edgar Hoover in the movie J. Edgar, and I thought he did a really good job in that movie as well. So this will be really interesting. Once again, kind of a FBI investigation. Pretty much, guys, one of those stories that they really never a lot of unsolved criminal conspiracies and such that came through with this whole story that was written from Killers of the Flower Moon. And I think this is really down DiCaprio as well as Martin Scorsese's, their alley for sure. Now, this is what's really interesting, in my opinion. So Killers of the Flower Moon won't have any problem finding a streaming service to help shoulder the cost, especially considering that the film is going to be the kind of epic, sprawling mystery that Scorsese excels at, meaning that it will likely gain some attention come award season. The movie is also inspired by one of the darkest criminal conspiracies in American history, dubbed the Reign of Terror, and it's a story that deserves to be known. This was a portion of an article, guys, that was written by Kieran Fisher of Film School Rejects. Now, this is what's interesting, guys. This is a movie that's slated, based on the IMDb page, slated for 2021. However, it looks like Martin Scorsese's having some issues with this film because he wants to have a $200+ million budget to make this film. And it looks like Paramount, who he was originally partnered with to actually make this movie, was for, I believe, like $170+ million. Now he wants $200 million plus budget, and Paramount balks at the $200 million plus budget, forcing producers to seek a new studio. Martin Scorsese now is going to Apple as well as Netflix, according to the Wall Street Journal. R.T. Watson and Joe Flynn are reporting this, to rescue the costly DiCaprio film. And so here's the thing, guys. I'm thinking to myself that Killers of the Flower Moon might be pushed back even further, potentially. Now, would one of these companies, one of these streaming services, pick this film up? I think there's a potential to it. I don't know if it would be Netflix. So even though Netflix worked on The Irishman, obviously, with Martin Scorsese, I believe that they did that more for a prestige move. They wanted to get Martin Scorsese's movie on their streaming services, even though we don't know necessarily how much money they made off of it, because it only went to, limited amounts of theaters before it was released onto the streaming service. And so we'll never really know, were they able to recoup that money that they made from, of course, spending as far as all that money is concerned on Martin Scorsese's The Irishman. We'll never know. I'm sure they made some money, but it might, be kind of like they're just, breaking even almost, because it was a very expensive movie, The Irishman. And I don't know how many people watched that movie on Netflix. I know I did, but it's a long movie and it got nominated and such. And that was kind of like the prestige play that Netflix wanted. They were going for something that they would get nominated for a number of Oscars. So would they do that again? It's possible, but $200 million plus, guys, to make this movie, that seems pretty expensive. And look, Martin Scorsese, in my personal opinion, is one of the big three when it comes to the best directors of all time, okay? And there's nothing about him, guys, kind of strikes me as a guy who is just always wanting to kind of up his budget and such. But it's interesting. You kind of wonder what is it that they're going to be using that $200 million for? I mean, it sounds like they're trying to are they going to try to use a lot of different types of CGI and such? I don't see them really doing that for an investigative type of movie. It's hard to say really where they're going with this. Now, we know that with The Irishman, it cost a lot of money because of the de-aging programs that they were using in that movie to make, of course, De Niro as well as Pesci and Al Pacino all look younger. But at the same time, I still kind of can't really fathom that it cost that much money for them to make The Irishman as it did. So $200+ million to make this movie. Look, you got a stellar cast. DiCaprio and Robert De Niro and whoever else is going to join the cast. I'm sure it's going to be incredible. But even like a movie like The Wolf of Wall Street, it wasn't necessarily, sure, people are still talking about that movie to this day. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. But at the end of the day, numbers don't lie. It didn't make, it wasn't the kind of movie that was making like $1 billion at the box office. It made a good amount of money, but it wasn't making, tons and tons of money, whereas the cost of the movie, how much it costed to make. So I think Paramount looked at this and they were thinking, look, Killers of the Flower Moon is most likely not going to be $1 billion movie. It's not going to make that much. Could it make, 500 to 800 million? Sure, probably. But it's probably not going to pass $1 billion, and $200 million just to make it, not including marketing and all of those things. They're probably looking at it as, look, we'll partner with you, but you got to find somebody else to work with you as well on this. And so that's why it looks like he's going to Apple as well as Netflix. Now, maybe one of those companies will say, sure, let's do it. If, it's not going to be 200 million plus for just them alone, like with Paramount and Apple and Netflix, or however they work it, they all kind of split those, the budget between themselves, and then they all are splitting the revenues and all of that. But I'm surprised that Scorsese needs that much money for this type of movie. Maybe they're going to try some crazy stuff. Who knows? But it doesn't feel like it's the kind of movie like a Tenet for Christopher Nolan, who's trying all these different types of like sci-fi and all these, different types of technological, advances in filmmaking. It seems like, Scorsese is kind of just doing the same thing that he's always done, but he's trying to kind of up that budget as he goes, which is very interesting. And I hope that this doesn't affect, the release date of this movie. And I feel like it might. We might not get this movie, guys, until, late next year, 2021. Or even it might get postponed to 2022, depending on when Scorsese is able to get the funding for this. Where is the movie at this point, guys? I think it's definitely going to get made. I don't think it's going to be something where it's going to get canceled or they're not going to make it anymore because of the budget. I think Scorsese will adjust his budget if he absolutely has to. But that all being said, guys, let me know what you guys think. What are you the most excited about with Killers of the Flower Moon? Personally, just Scorsese and DiCaprio working together once again, I think it's going to be a match made in heaven. I think DiCaprio very well could be going for his next Oscar nomination, hopefully win another Oscar, which he's deserved a lot more, in my personal opinion, than what he's gotten at this point. But those two, I think it's a match made in heaven, guys, and I hope that is something that they're able are able to pull off here, to say the least. But let me know what you guys think, like I said, in the comment section below. What are you excited about? What are you excited to see in Killers of the Flower Moon? And do you think we're going to, we're going to be sticking with the 2021 release? Or do you think it'll be later on in the future? Let me know what you guys think. And for more Killers of the Flower Moon content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. And with that being said, everyone, I hope you guys did enjoy this episode of the 8 Below Show. And if you guys did, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, stay positive, and as always, I'll talk to you guys all in the next one. Peace.